During the dinner, celebrating my mother-in-law's birthday in Rome, I noticed my assigned chair was absent. My husband let out a brief laugh, saying, "Oops! I suppose we made a mistake counting." While the rest of the family found this amusing, I spoke calmly. It appears I am not considered family, and subsequently left the premises. Half an hour later, they realized that I had revoked all arrangements for the celebration. This included the location, the food service, and every other element. Shock caused their expressions to become extremely pale. "It seems I am not family," I stated, my voice remaining level even though I felt intense internal distress. My declaration lingered in the atmosphere of the high-end Roman eatery as 12 individuals fixed their gaze upon me, displaying reactions from utter astonishment to barely masked contentment. "Shawn," my husband's slight laugh when he had remarked, "Oops, guess we miscounted," was still resonating in my mind as I pivoted and departed from the dining surface where a seating spot was denied to me. The overwhelming disgrace intensified my emotions as I stepped out of the dining establishment. Yet, I did not shed any tears. Conversely, an unnatural composure settled over me as I retrieved my mobile device and accessed the event planning application upon which I had built my professional life. I calculated that I had 30 minutes before they would understand the nature of my actions, and this duration was entirely sufficient. Before continuing this narrative, I wish to pause momentarily to express gratitude to everyone participating in this remarkable experience. Occasionally, the most impactful moments occur when we finally acknowledge If you have ever experienced feeling like an outsider observing events unfold, this personal account might resonate deeply with you. Before we observe Anna's progression from being Boston's foremost event coordinator to a woman recovering her dignity in Rome, please click subscribe to become a member of our readership dedicated to stories focusing on self-discovery and unexpected fortitude. Now, let us peer beyond the surface of a marriage primarily constructed on superficial appearances. My full name is Anna Morgan Caldwell. 5 years prior, I was simply Anna Morgan, the founder of Elite Affairs, which was Boston's most sought-after company for planning events. I had successfully established my business starting from nothing after financing my own education through business school. My discreet approach, meticulous focus on specifics, and proven capacity to accomplish seemingly impossible tasks meant that my invisible contribution was present in every refined gala, every impeccably managed corporate function, and every high society wedding taking place in Boston. This stellar reputation led to me becoming the preferred planner for the city's wealthiest class. This is how I first encountered Shawn Caldwell at the philanthropic ball I organized for the Boston Children's Hospital. He was tall, possessing immaculately styled dark hair and a grin that caused the corners of his eyes to wrinkle slightly. Shawn exuded the effortless self-assurance characteristic of someone who has never been troubled by financial concerns. He exhibited charm in the polished manner typical of men born into inherited wealth, yet his curiosity regarding my professional activities seemed genuine. "So, you are the genius orchestrating all of this?" he inquired, motioning towards the dramatically altered Four Seasons ballroom. "My mother has been struggling to find someone suitable to hire for her upcoming charity fundraiser next month. I believe I have just located the perfect person." Managing that initial job resulted in further engagements, and soon I was consistently organizing events for the Caldwell family. The Caldwell lineage represented Boston's old money aristocracy, with their fortune originating from historical shipping and railway enterprises. They possessed a particular type of wealth that did not necessitate overt display. It was demonstrated by the inherent sophistication of everything they owned and the natural comfort with which they navigated their environment. Our romantic relationship commenced 6 months subsequent to my start of professional work for his family. Shawn pursued me with the same intense commitment he applied to his role at the family's investment company. Naturally, there were initial cautionary signs, such as the way his mother, Eleanor, observed me with barely disguised disapproval when Shawn first presented me as more than just his event coordinator. The casual remarks about my modest background and the surprise audible in people's voices upon learning I was dating a Caldwell were other indicators. "You have certainly achieved much success for yourself," Eleanor commented during the first dinner we shared as a couple, her smile not conveying genuine warmth. Self-made success is such a distinctly American concept. I chose to disregard these warnings because I was deeply in love with Shawn. He appeared to differ from his relatives, seeming more receptive and less preoccupied with heritage and social standing. When he proposed marriage 11 months after our initial date, I accepted despite an underlying intuition that I was entering a social sphere that would never truly embrace me. Unsurprisingly, the wedding became the social highlight of the season. I personally managed a significant portion of the planning, feeling unable to entrust another coordinator with my own marriage ceremony. Eleanor expressed strong opinions about every aspect. She felt the location was insufficiently traditional, The menu was too daring, and the guest registry lacked essential society figures. I made compromises where appropriate, yet maintained firmness on matters important to me. Shawn acted as a mediator, though I observed he seldom directly disagreed with his mother. Following the wedding, the subtle undermining of my position became increasingly structured. Although they continued to utilize my company for their functions, the Caldwells persistently questioned my decisions, implemented last-minute modifications to plans, and took credit for my creative concepts. During family gatherings, my opinions were solicited only to be subsequently dismissed. My professional background in event management was treated as if it were a charming recreational pursuit rather than a lucrative enterprise. Anna possesses such an excellent eye for these things, Eleanor would remark to her acquaintances, patting my hand patronizingly. It is almost like having an in-house party planner within the family. Shawn never defended me. He would typically shrug and tell me that was simply how his mother behaved, insisting I should not take it personally. However, it absolutely felt personal, and the situation deteriorated further as the years progressed. The chance to organize Eleanora's 70th birthday celebration in Rome should have represented my greatest professional triumph. It involved a week-long celebration in the Eternal City, concluding with a dinner at a Michelin-starred restaurant offering views of the Colosseum. I devoted all my energy to crafting the perfect occasion, utilizing every professional contact I possessed in the industry. It was during this extensive planning process that I first noticed genuine flaws in the Caldwell family's outward appearance. The payments of deposits for venues were consistently delayed. Vendors began contacting me to inquire about pending payments. When I raised these concerns with Shawn, he casually dismissed them, claiming the family accountant was merely exercising caution regarding international transactions. Yet, I unintentionally viewed financial statements left open on his personal computer. These documents revealed failed investments, properties mortgaged to their maximum value, and credit limits completely exhausted. The extensive Caldwell wealth was rapidly diminishing. Nevertheless, I continued with the planning, utilizing my own company's credit facility to guarantee deposits whenever required. I convinced myself this was a temporary necessity and that Shawn would explain the entire situation once the birthday festivities were completed. Then arrived the morning scheduled for our flight to Rome. Shawn was occupied taking a shower when his mobile device received a notification. I had always respected his privacy and never checked his phone previously, but on this particular morning, an impulse compelled me to look. The preview of the message from V was unmistakably displayed on his screen. "Can't wait to see you in Rome. Have you informed her yet?" My actions were instinctive. I opened the conversation thread belonging to Vanessa Hughes, who was Shawn's university sweetheart. She was the woman his parents had consistently adored and the one they had fully expected him to marry before I entered his life. The messages spanned several months, detailing future plans, discussions about their life together, and confirmation of a baby, their child, due in 4 months. I captured screenshots of the evidence, transmitted them to myself, and then erased all trace from his phone. I subsequently packed my luggage, applied a cheerful expression, and boarded the flight to Rome alongside my husband and his family members. Now, standing outside the designated restaurant in Rome, I finalized my decision. I resolved not to confront Shawn before the celebratory dinner. Instead, I would allow their events to proceed, ensuring I was prepared for the inevitable outcome. Our flight touched down at Fiumicino Airport precisely as the radiant Italian sunset cast an amber glow across Rome as city. I had arranged dedicated private transport for the entire Caldwell entourage, which consisted of Shawn's parents, Eleanor and Richard, his sister Melissa and her husband, Grant, his brother, Thomas, and his wife, Claire, along with 2 sets of aunts and uncles. A coordinated line of sophisticated black Mercedes vans awaiting them at the terminal should certainly have impressed them. Instead, Eleanor's initial remark upon disembarking the aircraft was, "I specifically requested the hotel's own vehicles. Anna, these seem somewhat generic." I held back my retort, as I had done countless times previously. The hotel encountered a logistical issue. These vehicles are actually provided by Lux Transport. They routinely serve most of Rome's diplomatic staff. My explanation went unheeded as she was already deep in conversation with Richard, their heads lowered together in the secretive manner that invariably left me excluded. The Hotel di Russi welcomed us with the luxurious 5-star service that I had painstakingly organized. Champagne flowed freely in the private reception area while porters swiftly transported our luggage. I had dedicated months to securing the ideal accommodations, selecting suites that offered the most spectacular vista, arranging personalized welcome baskets filled with local Italian treats, and scheduling individualized itineraries for every member of the family. Eleanor barely glanced at her printed itinerary before setting it aside dismissively. "We will simply decide as we go," she announced, waving away weeks of detailed planning efforts. The family is quite familiar with Rome. Our suite was magnificent, featuring a balcony overlooking the Spanish Steps, fresh flower arrangements in every chamber, and a bottle of Shawn's preferred Barolo wine decanting on a nearby table. However, the moment we entered, Shawn's phone vibrated, and he moved onto the terrace to engage in a hushed conversation. I inquired when he returned. "Just some minor investment concerns," he answered, deliberately avoiding eye contact. "Let us prepare for the meal." The initial welcome dinner I had planned at a delightful trattoria in Trastevere provided the first undeniable indication of my intentional exclusion. Due to some maneuvering, the seating arrangements shifted just prior to our arrival, and I found myself positioned at the furthest extremity of the table, physically separated from Shawn by his cousin and an aunt. Throughout the duration of the meal, private jokes circulated across the table, along with anecdotal stories regarding past family trips to Italy from which I had been conspicuously absent. When I made an attempt to participate in the discussion concerning the scheduled activities for the week, Melissa abruptly interrupted. "Oh, Anna, we actually decided to pursue some family shopping tomorrow instead of attending the Vatican tour." "Shopping?" I asked. "You know," Eleanor smoothly interjected, "just a certain family custom we observe. You would certainly find it dull, darling. Why not utilize that time to verify the final birthday preparations? After all, that is your primary strength." This pattern of exclusion persisted over the subsequent few days. I would wake up to discover that Shawn had already departed, leaving behind a brief note mentioning a breakfast meeting with his father. The family would disappear for prolonged periods on spontaneous outings that everyone seemed aware of except for me. Low conversations occurring in hidden parts of the hotel lobby ceased immediately whenever I approached. Dinner reservations were inexplicably altered to accommodate former friends who happened to be visiting Rome. These friends scrutinized me with thinly veiled curiosity, seemingly evaluating how I was coping with the impending situation. On the third morning, a chance presented itself when Shawn hastily departed to meet his brother, forgetting to lock his briefcase. The documents contained within completely validated my gravest fears. They included preliminary separation paperwork drafted by the Caldwell family's lawyer, dated 2 months previously. A proposed financial settlement was offered, amounting to a trifling sum compared to my actual entitlements. Most incriminating of all was a prepared script, a precise outline detailing how Shawn was meant to announce our imminent divorce during his mother's birthday dinner, falsely presenting it as a mutually agreed upon, amicable resolution. My hands shook uncontrollably as I captured photographs of every page using my mobile device. There it was, laid out plainly, the perfectly engineered departure of the unsuitable spouse. It was precisely timed for maximum social visibility, yet minimum embarrassment for the Caldwells. Eleanor's birthday was not merely a celebratory occasion. It was planned to be my social downfall as a Caldwell. Instead of directly confronting Shawn, I channeled my fury into meticulously collecting evidence. Each day, I fabricated excuses to return to our suite alone, searching for further documentation. I discovered bank statements revealing significant transfers to accounts located offshore. I found printed emails discussing the swift liquidation of assets before the financial trouble could become public knowledge. A handwritten communication from Eleanor addressed to Shawn stated, "Once this unpleasantness involving Anna is behind us, Vanessa will be properly welcomed back." My professional demeanor remained firmly intact as I continued to oversee the final birthday preparations. I confirmed the floral arrangements, held meetings with the restaurant manager, authorized the customized menu cards, all while accumulating digital evidence detailing the Caldwells' financial collapse. If anyone inquired why it appeared preoccupied, I blamed necessary last-minute event specifics. In reality, I was carefully assembling my strategy. Eleanor's birthday arrived, beginning with a bright and clear morning. I woke early, slipping out of bed without waking Shawn. The day's itinerary was rigorous. A private morning tour of the Borghese Gallery, lunch at a winery outside the city, followed by a return to the hotel to ready ourselves for the evening's extravagant dinner. As the appointed event planner, I was obligated to arrive at the restaurant ahead of the other guests to guarantee that every detail was flawless. I was situated in the hotel's business center, printing the final confirmation documents, when I inadvertently overheard Eleanor's voice coming from the concierge desk adjacent to me. The dividing partition was thin, and her demanding tone was clearly audible. "There must be 12 seats, absolutely not 13. She instructed someone over the telephone. I do not care what the initial booking records state. The seating arrangement I transmitted is definitive." After a pause, she continued, "No, that will not present an issue. The arrangement has already been discussed with my son. His wife will not be remaining for the dinner. A private family matter. You understand? There is no requirement for questions when she departs. My blood instantly chilled as the complete narrative became shockingly clear. The missing chair was not an accidental omission or a spontaneous change. It was the central component of their scheme. A public degradation intended to make my departure appear as my own choice rather than their carefully calculated orchestration. I shut my laptop, gathered my documents, and walked toward the elevator with measured control. Inside, I retrieved my phone and commenced executing a completely new sequence of arrangements. If the Caldwells desired a memorable birthday dinner, I resolved to ensure it would be truly unforgettable, though certainly not in the manner they had conceived. I arrived at a Roma restaurant 1 hour before the remaining guests, as any skilled event professional would do. The rooftop location provided a spectacular panoramic view of the Colosseum, bathed in the warm, golden light of the fading sunset. I personally verified every specific element, from the meticulously hand-calligraphed name cards to the placement of Eleanor's preferred white peonies and roses. The champagne was chilling, the 7-course tasting menu was confirmed, and the triple-tiered birthday cake represented an absolute masterpiece of Italian pastry artistry. "Is everything to your satisfaction, Signora Caldwell?" inquired Marco, the head waiter. "Perfect," I responded, fully aware that this event would be the final one I would ever plan for the Caldwell family. Despite the circumstances, my professional commitment required nothing short of absolute perfection. I returned to the hotel to change into the midnight blue Valentino gown I had purchased specifically for this evening. As I applied my makeup with unwavering hands, I examined my reflection. 5 years spent attempting to assimilate into a world determined to reject me had certainly taken its toll. Yet not in the way the Caldwells might have hoped. Rather than destroying me, their actions had solidified my determination. The Caldwell family had agreed to meet together in the hotel lobby before proceeding to the restaurant. I arrived precisely on time to find them all awaiting me. Eleanor was resplendent in vintage Chanel, her elaborate diamond necklace catching the light. Shawn's eyes widened slightly upon seeing me. Perhaps he recalled what had initially drawn him to me, or perhaps he was calculating how soon he might finally be free of me. "Anna, darling, you look lovely," Eleanor said, delivering an air kiss near my cheeks. "We are just waiting for the vehicles." The journey to the restaurant was brief, filled with forced, superficial conversation about the day's activities from which I had been deliberately excluded. As we rode the elevator up to the rooftop level, Shawn placed his hand on the small of my back, a gesture that once signified intimacy now felt purely theatrical for the benefit of the elevator attendant. The doors opened, revealing the spectacular terrace I had designed, which had been transformed into an elegant dining area beneath the stars. The Colosseum stood brilliantly illuminated against the nighttime backdrop, serving as a powerful symbol of both immense splendor and the unavoidable decline of empires. How profoundly appropriate! Eleanor entered first, greeted by enthusiastic applause from the waiting relatives. One by one, everyone moved towards a large circular table I had designated, a table that was intended to accommodate 13 individuals. I followed directly behind Shawn, who moved purposefully toward the seat assigned to him adjacent to his mother. I approached the exact location where my place card should have been, only to discover nothing. There was no chair, no place setting, and absolutely no indication that I existed. For a brief moment, I remained perfectly still, presenting the image of perfect confusion. Around me, conversations resumed as everyone settled into their seats, diligently avoiding looking at me. The waiting staff, who had verified the seating arrangements with me mere hours earlier, appeared uneasy but remained silent. "Is something the matter?" Eleanor inquired innocently, her voice just loud enough to capture the attention of everyone present. "There appears to be an error," I stated, my tone much steadier than my internal state. "My designated place setting is missing." The meticulously rehearsed scenario unfolded precisely as they had planned. Furrowed brows, glances exchanged, Shawn half-rising from his chair, a display of concern that failed to register in his eyes. "That is strange," Melissa commented, surveying the table. "Did someone miscalculate the count?" Richard cleared his throat. Perhaps there was simply a miscommunication involving the restaurant personnel. Then came Shum's specific line, delivered with a rehearsed nonchalance that filled me with revulsion. He actually chuckled and said, "Oops, guess we missed." The family laughed, not harshly, which would have been too obvious, but with the gentle mirth of individuals sharing a private joke. In that instant, I perceived the entire situation with absolute clarity, the planned humiliation, the public setting selected to prevent any potential scene, the foundation laid for future stories they would circulate about poor Anna, who simply could not cope with the pressure of life within the Caldwell family. My eyes swept slowly around the table, examining every face. Eleanor, looking victorious behind her birthday smile. Richard, feeling awkward but nonetheless compliant. Melissa and Thomas, clearly enjoying the public spectacle. Their respective spouses, sufficiently aware of the cruelty to appear slightly embarrassed, yet not enough to raise any objection. And Shawn, my husband, the man who had once pledged to support me against the world, observing me with a cold curiosity, like a scientist observing a controlled experiment. I could easily have created a public scene. I could have demanded a chair, exposed their plot directly in front of the serving staff, generating the sort of public scandal that would be recounted in family lore for successive generations. That was exactly what they anticipated. What they were ready for. Eleanor would offer comfort to Shawn concerning his unstable wife, and the divorce narrative would write itself seamlessly. Instead, I deliberately straightened my posture, raised my chin, and delivered the single sentence that marked the commencement of my reclaiming of personal authority. Seems I'm not family. For words, straightforward, devastating in their inherent truth. Their smiles instantly wavered. Shawn's expression transitioned from smug satisfaction to palpable uncertainty. I had deviated entirely from their predetermined script. I will see myself out, I added, turning away with the profound dignity that had functioned as my defense mechanism throughout my marriage. Anna, stop being melodramatic, Shawn called up behind me, using another phrase straight from their planned lines. We can resolve this situation. I offered no reply. I walked through the restaurant, offering polite nods to the employees who had just witnessed my deliberate humiliation. In the confined space of the elevator, I finally permitted myself a deep inhalation and then another. By the time I reached the street level, my hands had ceased shaking. A small cafe situated directly opposite the restaurant provided the ideal surveillance position. I placed an order for an espresso and retrieved my mobile phone. This precise moment was the one I had meticulously prepared for. The 30 minutes of autonomous time while the Caldwells were internally celebrating their successful removal of the inappropriate wife. First, I dispatched a pre-composed email to Marco, the restaurant manager, containing specific instructions that had been previously agreed upon as a surprise contingency plan, which is standard practice in high-stakes event planning. Attached to this was documented proof of my authority as the account holder and event coordinator, along with confirmation of an immediate reversal of payment. Next came the sequential telephone calls to the vineyard scheduled for the following day's lunch, the private guide booked for the Vatican tour the day after, the yacht captain reserved for the Amalfi Coast excursion, and the luxurious villa in Tuscany planned for the concluding weekend. One by one, I canceled every single arrangement, efficiently transferring the deposits that had been secured using my own company's line of credit back into my business account. With the completion of each cancellation, I felt increasingly unburdened. Text messages from Shawn began to arrive. Initially, they conveyed annoyance, then confusion, and progressively escalating desperation as my tactics became unmistakably clear. I ignored all of them. 28 minutes after I had exited the restaurant, I finished my espresso and paid the bill. It was time to execute the final act. I rose, smoothed the fabric of my Valentino gown, and crossed the street to observe the exact moment when Eleanor Caldwell's perfectly planned birthday celebration dissolved around her. I entered a Roma restaurant using the service access, a route I had familiarized myself with during my prior inspection. Marco, the establishment's manager, greeted me with a look of concern. Signora Caldwell, are you completely certain about this? It is highly irregular. I am absolutely certain, Marco, and I sincerely appreciate your professionalism, I replied. I handed him a sealed envelope. This document contains confirmation of the payment reversals and the retraction of my company's financial guarantee for tonight's expenditure, I explained. As we previously discussed, the Caldwells will be required to furnish a new payment method if they wish to continue their meal. Marco acknowledged my instructions seriously. In the specialized world of events, professional connections and reputation were paramount. I had previously collaborated with Marco on 3 occasions for different Boston clients visiting Rome. He owed me professional favors, and although he might find my request unusual, standard professional etiquette mandated his compliance. When precisely should I inform them? He asked. I will send you a text message in exactly 5 minutes. I prefer to observe the situation from a concealed location. He escorted me to a small recess near the entrance to the kitchen, which afforded a perfect, unobstructed view of the Caldwells' table. They were currently in the midst of proposing a toast to Eleanor. Champagne glasses were held high, and their faces radiated smug self. The first course had just been presented. It was the imported Ocetra caviar that Eleanor had specifically requested. It had been almost disconcertingly easy to dismantle the entire week of Eleanor's birthday arrangements. Most high-end vendors within the hospitality sector operate within a delicate framework of mutual confidence and referrals. Since I was the event planner who had initiated all the arrangements and whose company credit facility had guaranteed the necessary deposits, I possessed the unilateral authority to enact changes. The digital record of emails, contractual agreements, and payment authorizations all distinctly bore my name and professional signature, not those of Eleanor or Shawn. My mobile phone vibrated. A new message from Shawn. Anna, where are you? Stop acting immaturely and return here. Then another. Mother is deeply upset. You are humiliating yourself. I chose not to reply. Instead, I sent a text to Carmen at the Villa Borghese, where the family was scheduled to reside for the Tuscany segment of their trip. Carmen confirmed the cancellation and conveyed her best wishes, adding that the substantial gratuity I had provided her staff would be reimbursed separately to my business account. My phone vibrated again with text messages from Shawn, now arriving in rapid succession. The hotel just called. They claim our reservation for tomorrow night has been canceled. What exactly are you doing, Anna? This is utterly ridiculous. Contact me immediately. This is not humorous. Fix this right now. I texted Marco. You may proceed. From my secret observation point, I watched as Marco approached the table accompanied by 2 other members of the staff. He leaned down to address Richard discreetly, who was seated at the head of the table opposite Eleanor. The family continued eating, initially paying minimal attention to the interruption. Richard's expression changed first, transitioning from courteous interest to genuine confusion, and then to outright alarm. He retrieved his wallet, speaking more emotionally to Marco. The manager shook his head apologetically, showing Richard something displayed on a digital tablet. By this point, the entire table had noticed the ongoing disturbance. Eleanor carefully put down her fork, her customarily regal composure beginning to show the first indications of tension. Shawn was staring intently at his phone, presumably reading the latest text message I had sent, which explained precisely what I had accomplished. All deposits had been successfully returned to my company account. All arrangements for the entire week have been cancelled. Your family's significant financial troubles are about to become highly public. Savor your caviar. The scene unfolded with the precision of a perfectly choreographed ballet of growing disorder. Richard abruptly rose, his face flushed with either anger or profound embarrassment, or perhaps both emotions simultaneously. Eleanor's hand instinctively flew to her prominent diamond necklace, gripping it as if seeking physical stability. Melissa was whispering frantically to her spouse. Thomas pulled out his phone, likely attempting to verify the situation independently. And Shawn remained utterly frozen, the color completely drained from his face. Unlike the others, he comprehended the full scope of the implications. He knew about the financial discoveries I had made concerning their wealth. He knew the consequences if his mother's high society acquaintances learned that the Caldwells could no longer settle a dinner bill, much less sustain their opulent lifestyle. My phone began to ring. It was Shawn calling now, not texting. I declined the incoming call and watched as he dramatically stood from the table, almost tipping over his chair as he stepped away to attempt contact again. This time, I answered the call. Anna? He hissed, his voice a complex mix of intense fury and utter panic. What in hell do you think you are attempting to do? It seems I am not family, I calmly reiterated. Therefore, I am not responsible for managing family celebrations. You absolutely must resolve this immediately. Do you have any idea how deeply humiliating this is for my mother? For all of us. I have exactly that idea, Shawn. That was precisely my intention. Where are you located? His tone shifted, desperation subtly entering his voice. We need to engage in a conversation. I can explain everything regarding Vanessa, about absolutely everything. I am certain you can offer an explanation. The problem is, I have already seen the financial records, Shawn. I have seen the emails. I am fully aware that the Caldwell empire is crumbling financially. And I know you have been actively concealing assets in offshore accounts prior to submitting the divorce filing. His sharp, audible gasp confirmed everything I already suspected. He never anticipated that I would uncover these specific details. He had severely underestimated me, just as his entire family had from the very start. Those records were strictly private. Yes, they were. Just as the text messages from Vanessa concerning the baby were private, just as the prepared script for announcing our divorce during your mother's birthday dinner was private, just as the deliberate seating arrangement excluding me was private. Silence settled over the line. In the visible part of the restaurant, I could observe the manager now addressing the entire table. Several neighboring diners were watching the drama unfold with undisguised interest. The Caldwell family's profound humiliation was rapidly becoming a public spectacle. Exactly the situation they had intended for me. Anna, please. Shawn's voice had lost every trace of its accustomed aristocratic confidence. You fail to comprehend the damage this will inflict upon us. I comprehend perfectly. That is precisely why I carried it out. We can certainly work this out. Return to the hotel. I will meet you there in 20 minutes. No, Shawn. I do not believe that we are capable of working this out. I abruptly terminated the call and emerged from my concealed location. It was time for my ultimate appearance as Mrs. Caldwell as I approached the large table. 12 pairs of eyes fixated on me, some filled with rage, saw me with fear, all registering sheer disbelief. Eleanor spoke first, her voice trembling with barely contained fury. How dare you deliberately destroy my birthday celebration? I smiled serenely, experiencing an odd sense of inner tranquility. I learned from the absolute best, Eleanor. After all, isn't this precisely what you had engineered for me? A public degradation. An elaborately orchestrated dismissal. The sole difference is that I took the liberty of modifying the conclusion. Richard stood up. This conduct is completely outrageous. You had absolutely no legal right. I had every right. I immediately interrupted. Every contract, every reservation, every arrangement was legally documented either in my personal name or my company's name. I merely implemented adjustments to the scheduling plans. You will undoubtedly live to regret this, Melissa spat out. When Shawn divorces you, you will receive nothing financially. That is precisely where you are mistaken, I responded, directing my gaze solely at Shawn. I possess documented copies of everything. The offshore bank accounts, the concealed assets, the potentially fraudulent business practices. I am quite sure the IRS will find all of this to be extremely compelling reading material. Their faces instantly turned deathly white as the grave financial implications fully registered. In that decisive moment, I experienced no feeling of triumph or vindication, only a profound, liberating sensation as I turned and walked away from the Caldwell family for the final time. I departed from Italy the next morning, deliberately upgrading my ticket to first class on a direct flight destined for Boston using accumulated reward points from planning the Caldwells' previous vacations. The profound irony of the situation was not lost on me. I left behind a family submerged in crisis, their meticulously constructed facade collapsing in real-time fashion. Through the services of the hotel concierge, I subsequently learned that the Caldwells were forced to settle their dinner bill using Eleanor's vintage Bulgari bracelet as collateral until a necessary wire transfer could be arranged. By the time morning arrived, reports had circulated throughout Rome as high-end hospitality network that the distinguished American family was encountering significant difficulties with payments. The remaining vendors whom I had not personally contacted for cancellation began demanding payment in advance instead of accepting further promises. My phone was inundated with messages, some containing threats, others pleading desperately. I read them during my connecting layover in London, sipping Earl Grey tea within the British Airways lounge. Richard's message read, "This is a prosecutable offense. Our legal counsel will be in immediate contact." Melissa's, "You have committed the single biggest error of your life." Thomas S., "Did you genuinely believe you could publicly embarrass our family without enduring consequences?" Eleanor's text was the most insightful. "I always knew you possessed common origins. This malicious display only validates everything I have asserted since the beginning." However, it was the continuous stream of messages originating from Shawn that truly narrated the story of a family rapidly falling apart. "Initially, you have absolutely no understanding of what you have done. My father experienced a mild cardiac episode. Is that truly what you wished for?" Subsequently, the Prescotts and Whitmores observed the entire incident. Do you realize the implications this holds for our social standing? Later, the hotel is now demanding upfront payment for the entire week's stay. They claim all financial guarantees have been retraced. And finally, "Please, Anna, I urgently need to speak with you. This involves more than just our personal relationship now." I did not reply to any of their communications. Instead, I electronically transmitted the gathered financial documents to my lawyer, instructing her to retain them securely until they became necessary. Should the Caldwells initiate legal proceedings, I would be completely prepared. Upon arriving home at our Beacon Hill brownstone residence, I immediately hired a professional moving company to systematically pack up only my personal possessions. I took solely those items that were unequivocally mine. My clothing, jewelry I had personally acquired, my comprehensive collection of first edition books, and the artwork I had purchased before our marriage, every other item, including the wedding gifts and jointly purchased belongings, I deliberately left behind. I wished for nothing that could maintain any connection between myself and the Caldwells' pervasive network of financial deception. 2 days later, the Boston Globe published a discreet entry within their society column. The headline read, "Caldwell Investment Group Faces Inquiry." The brief article referenced financial irregularities and documented questions raised by multiple investors. While it did not dominate the front page, it was sufficient to generate significant ripples throughout Boston's established social circuits. Shawn appeared unexpectedly at my new apartment 1 week following my return from Rome. He appeared exhausted and stressed, the polished facade of inherited privilege replaced by authentic desperation. "You must return home," he stated immediately upon my opening the door. "This situation has progressed far enough now. This is not intended as a negotiating strategy, Shawn. This is divorce." He stepped inside without my invitation, frantically running his hands through his unkempt hair. "The SEC is currently investigating father's accounts. 2 members of the board have already submitted their resignations. Mother was compelled to cancel her planned charity gala because 3 principal donors withdrew their support. That sounds very much like a problem belonging entirely to the Caldwell family," I replied. "Not mine. It is your problem if I financially collapse along with the company," he countered. "We are legally married still. My accumulated debts are legally your debts." I allowed myself a fleeting, small smile. "Not when I possess undeniable proof that you intentionally excluded me from all financial decisions and systematically concealed assets with the express intent to defraud me during divorce proceedings. My legal counsel guarantees me that this evidence is sufficient to protect my interests." His composure completely shattered. Shawn then sank heavily onto my couch, burying his face in his hands. "I genuinely never intended for things to escalate like this." "What exactly did you intend, Shawn?" "To marry me for my useful event planning skills. To utilize me to meticulously manage your social calendar while simultaneously rekindling your relationship with Vanessa. To dispose of me entirely when I had served my utility." "It wasn't that way initially," he whispered softly. "I truly did feel affection for you, but not enough to actively oppose your family's wishes. Not enough to be truthful regarding your ongoing affair." I sat positioned opposite him, feeling remarkably composed. "When is the baby scheduled to arrive?" His head snapped up abruptly. "How did you—" "In 4 months, according to the text messages I observed." "My congratulations." A profound silence settled heavily between us. Outside, the rain commenced tapping softly against the windows of my new apartment, which was smaller than our previous brownstone, yet entirely mine, paid for solely using the generated revenues from a successful business I had established without any reliance on Caldwell money or influence. "I will grant you absolutely anything you request," Shawn finally stated. "Just hand over those documents and sign a non-disclosure agreement. Name your precise price." That precise moment revealed to me that the Caldwells still fundamentally failed to understand my character at all. Even after 5 years, they persisted in viewing me as someone who could be bought, someone motivated exclusively by the same materialistic priorities that defined their existence. "I do not desire your financial wealth, Shawn. I desire my autonomy. I want the absolute truth to be publicly acknowledged." I stood up, signaling the imminent conclusion of our discussion. "The documents will remain securely with my legal representative unless you attempt to drag me down into the debacle with you. The terms of the divorce settlement are straightforward. I depart with what is rightfully mine, and you depart with what is rightfully yours. And Vanessa, the child," his voice was almost inaudible, "that matter rests between your conscience and yourself. I genuinely hope you will prove to be a superior husband to her than you ever were to me." After his departure, I stood by the window, watching the rain intensify outside. The ensuing scandal gradually unfolded over the subsequent weeks. The Boston Globe published a far more detailed piece addressing the Caldwell Investment Group's financial inconsistencies. Long-term clients quietly began withdrawing their financial portfolios. Eleanor's official standing on 3 highly esteemed charity boards was downgraded to emeritus status rather than active membership. Vanessa's pregnancy became public knowledge when she was photographed visiting her obstetrician's office wearing a conspicuous engagement ring. The evident timeline made it clear that their relationship had fully resumed long before the conclusion of my marriage. Within Boston's elite social circles, infidelity could often be overlooked if executed discreetly. But such brazen misconduct was a violation of the unspoken societal code. My event planning business flourished, perhaps because of the scandal rather than despite it. Clients who had previously looked down upon me now greatly valued my discretion and integrity. The narrative that began circulating was not about a woman scorned by betrayal, but about a dedicated professional who utterly refused to be exploited and then discarded. 6 months later, I received an invitation that caused me to laugh aloud upon opening it. It was a formal request to submit a bid for planning Anna Caldwell's subsequent charity fundraising event. Evidently, sheer desperation had finally overpowered their inherent pride. I politely declined the request, citing a fully committed professional calendar. The divorce proceedings were finalized without any further conflict. The Caldwells, preoccupied with the pressing task of salvaging their professional reputation and rapidly dwindling finances, readily agreed to my non-negotiable terms without argument. Shawn and Vanessa were married quietly, and their daughter was born 2 weeks later. I did not send any gift on the 1-year anniversary of that fateful night in Rome. I found myself professionally coordinating yet another event in Italy, a high-profile celebrity wedding situated on the Amalfi Coast. As I stood on a sweeping terrace gazing out over the expansive Mediterranean Sea, mobile phone in hand and vendors awaiting my instruction, I arrived at an unexpected realization. I was genuinely happy, not in spite of the catastrophic collapse of my marriage, but fundamentally because of it. The Caldwells had attempted to make me feel insignificant, aiming to reduce my identity to merely an accessory within their grand family narrative. Instead, they had inadvertently granted me the freedom to reclaim control of my own story. In the process of losing what I believed I desired, I had successfully found what I truly required. This was not acceptance from a family determined to reject me, but rather the internal fortitude to reject an existence fundamentally constructed upon superficial appearances. I raised my glass towards the sinking sun, dedicating a silent toast to the deliberately missing chair that had so clearly demonstrated exactly where I truly belonged.